in the House of Representatives. Brilliant member, absolutely fantastic leader of abolition, and now Reconstruction. And then in the Senate, yes, Charles Sumner, the victim of the Brooks-Sumner debate back in 1857, now is returned to the United States Senate and has turned his fervent abolitionism to the cause of fighting for blacks' rights in the South during Reconstruction. And now we'll see a whole different phase of Reconstruction at that point in time. Okay. That second phase of Reconstruction, military Reconstruction, Republican Reconstruction, radical Reconstruction, or congressional Reconstruction. Know the four names, because it's that second phase of Reconstruction. It's no longer presidential with Lincoln's plan, Wade Davis bill, and Johnson's plan. The presidential Reconstruction is over. It is now taken hold in 1867 by the radical Republicans in Congress. And again, it's called radical, it's called congressional, it's called Republican, and it's called military. And from 1867 for almost the next 10 years, Reconstruction will be run by Congress. So recognize right and smack dab in the middle of this issue of how much do we do for blacks in the South post-Civil War is the tussle of who's going to run the country, the president or Congress. We see that throughout American history. What we see now is this tussle being fought out over the issue of black freedom. The military Reconstruction is clear. Divide the South into 5 military districts. We will impose martial law in those districts. We will have a general from the North run those districts, and we'll have the military to enforce the means of Reconstruction and protect African Americans, protect their economic, political, and social freedom that we from the North deem it to happen, deem important. Now, of course, if you're a Southerner in this time period and for the next 150 years, until right now, you look at military Reconstruction and say it is the long, evil arm of the federal government imposing tyranny upon the free, liberty-seeking people of the South. And that is a yoke under which we will not live. Now, you can look at it entirely differently from that, but that's the story told in American textbooks, that the evil federal government is tyrannically destroying the liberty of the South in order to give freedom to black people. And was that true? Is that really what took place in the South during Reconstruction? That's what you as a historian have to be able to answer. So what you have is military, congressional, radical Reconstruction with these districts, with generals running the South. And what are they in fact imposing? They're imposing the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment says anybody born here is a citizen, and as a citizen, what you get is equal protection of the law, and you get due process rights under the law. Now, there's a third one, the privileges and immunities, not to be stopped by the states, but that is essentially written out of the Constitution early. What we have in the 14th Amendment is a federal government protection for you as an individual, you as a citizen, simply because you were born here, to be protected from state law. This 14th Amendment says the state cannot take away your due process rights under the 5th Amendment. It says the state cannot take away your equal protection under the law. And it's one of the most amazing amendments we've ever done in the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution protects us as individuals against federal government power. Well, the 14th Amendment says that protection against government power pertains to the states as well. You are protected against state action in the form of a state government denying me equal protection of the law based on my group status and denying me due process of law. Remember, due process. The government can't take away my life, my liberty, or my property without due process. And that 14th Amendment sits there, and what it does is say black people cannot be discriminated against because they're black by black codes or any other actions of the state. So what we have is finally protection for black people enforced at bayonet point by federal government troops. Now, who is going to be doing Reconstruction? Of course, the South looks and says, Northerners coming south to exploit black people and rip us white people off are called carpetbaggers. Everything they own is in the carpet bag, and they go south and they rip us off. If you're a Southerner and you happen to go along with it, you're called a scalawag. Either way, this is hurting the liberty of us white people in the South. This is all set up so Northerners can advantage black people and destroy our liberty. So you got carpetbaggers and scalawags, and it's captured in a movie from 1915, one of the greatest movies ever made as far as technology and the use of film, called Birth of a Nation, where the KKK is seen as the heroic saviors of freedom and black people and white people in the South against the evil carpetbaggers and scalawags and malicious black people who are little better than savages. This is an amazingly interesting movie, an amazingly awful movie that captures the feeling of Southerners about military radical Reconstruction during this time period. Because who is protected? Black people. Who gains office? Black people. The majority of the South Carolina legislature at this time is African American. We send 7 senators up to Congress who are African American. We have multiple representatives in the United States House of Representatives who are African American. Blacks get social, economic, and political freedom because of military Reconstruction. Of course, it's done at bayonet point. Is that what you want? Bayonet point to enforce the rights of black people? But it happens. So you have these countervailing notions of, is this the worst thing that ever happened, or maybe the best thing that ever happened? Of course, fighting it, every step along the way is Andrew Johnson. And so the radical Republicans not only enforce Reconstruction, but attempt to get rid of Andrew Johnson as a president. And that is called the Tenure of Office Act. They pass the Tenure of Office Act. It's clearly unconstitutional. It says you cannot fire a cabinet official without congressional Senate approval. That's clearly not the way the Constitution's set up. But it's merely put there so that Andrew Johnson will violate it, fire Lincoln's Secretary of State, Edward Stanton, so that he violates the law, so that he can be guilty of a high crime and misdemeanor, and therefore impeached by the House of Representatives with a majority vote, sent to the Senate to be put on trial, with the Senate sitting as the jury, with the Supreme Court head justice sitting as the judge, and with the House of Representatives seeking to convict him at trial, and his own representatives defending him. He is within 1 vote of being kicked out of office, successful conviction for the high crimes and misdemeanors, and the House of Representatives falls 1 Senate vote short so that they do not convict him, so he is not kicked out of office. And it's a big tussle at that point in time. Fortunately for the nation, we can get rid of Andrew Johnson by the election of 1868, and in the election of 1868, we have Ulysses S. Grant, the ex-Union general, come in and serve for 2 terms in a somewhat, I don't know. He's not drinking, but he's not that great a leader. He's not corrupt himself, but allows for maybe the most corrupt administration around, and not a great leader on Reconstruction, even though he views African American rights as very, very important. So we have Grant's presidency. The final phase of Reconstruction will come at this point in time.